But he does join the Civil War. In 1861, the Civil War kicks off. This is Andrew Taylor still in his Civil War uniform, taken at Fort Leavenworth. And he enlists. He's a private in this photograph. He is rapidly promoted to hospital steward. So he went from like E1 to E4 or E5. They recognized he had these medical skills. And the Surgeon General of the Army had written in his reports that they were going to do this hospital steward program because they needed to clear the battlefield of the wounded, and that they needed these sturdy frontier men because he knew he didn't have that kind of force, and he wanted that kind of force. And these men knew how to survive on the frontier, and AT was one of these men. They rapidly promoted him. He did not go to Fort Leavenworth and take a hospital steward course. They have no record of him there taking a course. It was done by apprentice, and they decided he had the skills, and he demonstrated he had the skills, and indeed he did. He saved a couple of men's legs in Missouri right after the Battle of Lexington. There were multiple skirmishes in a place known as Cass County, Missouri, right across from Johnson County, where the border war was very active. And he could find the femoral artery, and he helped save a couple of men's legs that would otherwise have been amputated. And he recognized that the field sanitation issues were horrific. And he writes about this. The other photo is from his autobiography, and this is in 1864. He's a major in this photo, and he's leading men into battle on his mule, and that's the Battle of the Big Blue. And that also is in Missouri. So he serves from 1861 to 62. He musters out in 1862 in Harrisonville, Missouri, and he goes back to work for a while, and then he comes back into the military, and they're called urgently to this proclamation that's made by the governor of Kansas. This is Governor Carney's proclamation that Kansas is going to be under attack very soon by the Confederate Army. And they have made another sweep through Missouri at this time. The Confederacy is in desperate straits, and they're looting as they go. And he has 100 wagons full of loot, and he's trying to get it back to Arkansas and Texas. And he has a rather formidable force, but they're not winning very many battles. And they're trying to attack our armories, and they're trying to gather everything they can for this war. So he starts heading towards Kansas City. So they know he's coming. And the Union Army doesn't have enough men at Fort Leavenworth. They only had about 5,000 men anyway. Most of them were out in the West in the Indian territories. And so they put the call out quickly, and they get 15,000 men to come into these regiments rather quickly and put them on the border. And they put them in Shawneetown. And this is a letter that was written from that encampment to the Lawrence Tribune on 20th of October, 1864. And you can see here it says, a few words from the 21st Regiment KSM, Kansas State Militia. These men are under the governor's control. He would not release them to the Union Army. They were under the governor's control. They went to the border. They were not to go into Missouri just yet. Only if needed. They were a reserve force. They were going to protect the border. So we are enjoying a very pleasant situation in a beautiful field, joining the old Johnson mission. The old Johnson mission. Tom Johnson has been murdered. He famously switched sides from the Confederacy to the Union for economic reasons, because the Confederacy was going under economically, and he was murdered for it. So it's the old Johnson mission at this point. We are enjoying camp life with the zest equal to a young Quaker kissing his wife. There was also a Quaker mission nearby, so that's the little joke about the Quakers. We think ourselves just as good soldiers as we ever marshaled on the plains of Kansas. The boys are all anxious to have a conflict with old Price. That's the Confederate General Price who's making his sweep. He's the one that did the Battle of Lexington in 1861. He's trying to make that same sweep again. It's not going as well. And they're under the command, they say, of Colonel Sandy Lowe, or Colonel S. Lowe, the gallant 21st. And they make a mention of Major A. Still can be seen gallantly taking his position with all his eccentricities, fearless of danger. The major's presence inspires the men with life and jollity, which makes camp life comparatively pleasant and easy. Sounds wonderful, doesn't he? So this is where they're headed. They're at the border, and they're called into service. General Curtis needs them, and he needs them down around Hickman Mills. And he calls them into service because the 2nd Regiment is there ahead of them, also a Kansas State Militia Regiment, an infantry regiment. And we have a really great record of this, what happens here at the Big Blue, because of this man, Samuel Reeder. Private Reeder is a wonderful artist, and he keeps these beautiful journals of Kansas, and they can be found at the Kansas State Historical Society. And this is an actual journal that you can find there. And this is journal number 11. You can see they go all the way back to 1854. So this young man has kept these beautiful records, but he's in the 2nd Regiment, and he is at this lane that they're supposed to block. They're doing blocking procedures, blocking maneuvers. There are places where they know people ford the river. There are roads they know they could block. And General Curtis is trying to shape the battlefield. And he's trying to force the Confederate Army towards Westport, where there will be a big battle, and they will be defeated. And it'll be almost as big and as important as Gettysburg. It's known as the Gettysburg of the West, this battle. This is 2 days before that at the Big Blue. And they're trying to ford the river there. And they're trying to block this road and shape the battlefield. The 2nd Regiment is in a flanking. They're in a flank. They're on the flank. They're trying to protect the flank. That's a bad place to be. But this is another piece of art that Reeder did, and this is the official piece of art about the Battle of the Big Blue. And that's what happens in the Army. They like history, and they have Army heritage things, and they often sanction a piece of art. This is that piece of art for the Battle of the Big Blue. That's the 2nd Regiment. You can see they're skirmishing in a line. They call that a skirmish line. And you see up on the horizon, that's the Confederate Army coming over the hill there. That is a division of cavalry. That's 5,000 men. A regiment is about 500 men. They're going to get killed and creamed. And this is what it looks like when a Confederate division goes through a regiment of infantry. It was very bad. They lost 100 men. They had 50 wounded, and they had 50 captured POW, including Reeder. And so we have an account of what it was like to be a POW from Reeder as well. These are the men that the 21st Regiment are coming to assist. And indeed, they do a good job, and they are firing into the Confederacy, and they steer them towards Westport. They did exactly what they were supposed to do. The commander of the 2nd Regiment doesn't think so. Colonel Veal writes a terrible after-action report. They didn't get there soon enough. My men got killed, you know. But General Curtis, the overall general of the Union Army, says, no, they did exactly what we wanted them to do. They steered them right where we wanted them to go, and he gave them accolades. So the 21st did well in the Union general's eyes, but not so well according to Colonel Veal, because his men were really taken back by this battle.